welcome to the Art of Being Human. You know, we've been dealing with self-concept, and as you know, self-concept is how you feel about yourself. It can be negative, it can be positive, it can be somewhere in between, which it usually is for most people. But you stop to think, why is this so important? And the other thing I want to mention too is usually it's predicated on you thinking how other people think towards you. So positive, you think other people feel positive towards you. If you're negative, then you feel other people are negative towards you. So you stop to think, why is this important? Why should I be spending so much time talking about self-concept? Because we've been doing that, I think, maybe for the last couple of sessions. But you have to realize that this is how you define yourself. We know that emotions are transitory and it's not your true character, so we can't define yourself according to your emotions, except everybody has them, and that's okay. But then you stop to think of what your self-concept is. You define yourself as to what you are. You have a definition in your brain as to what you are and how valuable you are, or if you're not valuable, or whether you're good or whether you're bad, and all of that. And so it defines you so much, it's really something that we have to go into. Now, I had one of my students tell me once, I was counseling her as well, and she said, I feel like a grain of sand. I feel very tiny in comparison to everybody else, and especially the magnificence of God. I feel so tiny. How could anyone care for me? Because I'm just so unlovable. I'm just so unworthy. And she went on and on and on with this. Now, I knew her, and I knew her for years, and I know she had a lot of faith, but she was comparing herself to other people, and she was comparing herself to God, which we never should do, because after all, he's so much greater than we are. And so she needed to have help in terms of her self-worth, because she didn't feel she had self-worth. Now, that's always a serious problem if you don't think that you're worthy, because then you get to feel like, if you're not worthy, then why am I here? And maybe I shouldn't be here. And then that leads to depression and all kinds of other things. So I know that we're told we don't want to be cocky, we don't want to be arrogant. And some people feel that that their self-concept is going to be the detriment of themselves, to the detriment of themselves, because they're going to start feeling cocky. They're going to start feeling like they're proud and they're arrogant if they feel good about themselves. But that's not what I find. When I counsel people, I find that they feel badly about themselves and they're struggling to have self-worth. They're not going to become arrogant. You can feel good about yourself without being arrogant. So the lack of self-worth becomes a problem in the healing process. And there has to be a way for people to feel good about themselves and to do it without being arrogant about it. And I don't think arrogance is a problem. So how do we help people with their self-concept? It begins with recognizing your gifts and your talents without bragging about them. I'm good at this, but that's because I genetically am good at it. It's not because I created it myself. So you have gifts from God and your heritage. You don't give yourself gifts or your IQ. That comes with a total package. That was given to you when you were born, before you were born. So that means that you can be there, you can be thankful for what you have and what you have been blessed with. Everybody has great worth, and everybody has important things to do. That includes you too. Nobody is alike, and they shouldn't be, so you shouldn't be comparing yourself to anybody else. We need to value our individuality, even though physically we're different. We're supposed to be different, but a lot of our physical nature is the same, because we all have wants and we all have needs, and we are a lot alike in many ways. Abuse causes a special problem in self-worth, because abusers make people feel like they're unworthy. They give them guilt and shame and blame. So what are these things? Blame is when you blame somebody else. It's your fault. It's not my fault. You know, I don't like what you're doing. That's your fault. I'm an alcoholic. That's your fault. blaming other people, guilt, and of course the other people who are on the other end of the line sometimes are all too willing to accept that guilt and to accept that blame. So the blame is it's your fault. The guilt is I'm guilty, I need punishment because I don't do anything right. We get this a lot in families. How many children are always told, you don't do anything right. I have to punish you because you don't do anything right. That gets down to the self-concept of I can't do anything right. I'm not worthy. And then you get to shame. Shame says you have no worth. You're bad. And it goes from I made a mistake to I am a mistake. Now that's a serious thing. When you get to shame, you have no self-worth. If you feel guilty, you still can have self-worth. If you accept blame, you can still have self-worth. But when you get to shame, it's I am a mistake. I am not good. So therefore, I have no worth. But you see, you were created. I feel people are created by God, and everybody has worth. But they need to know it. And so that's important that you understand that you have a destiny and you have a worth. You can't compare yourself with anybody else because you are unique. You grew in your mother's womb and you are under the supervision of God. Now I'm going to read a scripture verse. I usually don't do it in a class like this, but I'm going to read it because I think it's important to the discussion I'm having with you. Psalm 139 verses 15 and 16 says this, "My frame was not hidden from you when I was made. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be." So what does it say? God created you. You have worth. God saw you before you were born. God saw your development and supervised it. And God knows what all your days are going to be like, because it does say that your frame was not hidden when you were being made, and your eyes saw God's eyes saw your unformed body, and all the days ordained for you were written in your book before one of them came to be. Now, that means he knows everything about you. He knew you before you were born. He created you, and he knows what your days are going to be like. You can feel good about yourself without being arrogant. And you need to feel good about yourself if you're going to go through the healing process. Now, I'm going to go through some charts here, since my voice isn't going to do very well. And we're going to talk about negative self-concept, perfectionism, as I go through the charts. And the negative self-concept, what do you learn about yourself? What do you feel about yourself if you have a negative self-concept? Well, you're taught that you're not satisfactory. You're not good enough. You feel you have less worth. You withdraw into the self to avoid others. You feel insecure and you cover it up. You belittle yourself. You act superior sometimes because you want to cover up the insecurity that you have. Not that you really feel superior, but you acted. You use arrogance to cover the fact that you have to have something to prove and you don't feel you have anything to prove. You depreciate yourselves and you feel that you're not smart and you're not successful. It leads to perfectionism. You need perfection in order to have worth, and you feel if you don't have perfection, you don't have worth. You have no tolerance for those who disagree with you. You must follow the rules to be right, and you must be right by whatever definition right is in your own mind. So that gives a negative self-concept. Let's go to the next one. The problem with perfectionism is that it becomes your master. And if you fear that you're not perfect, then you're going to fear that you're not going to be liked. You have anxiety and you have a need for more people to be pleased with you. Perfectionists develop these characteristics. They're usually guilt-ridden because they never feel like they're perfect. They're unhappy, they're rigid, they're not flexible, They need approval. They fear not being able to control things, and control gives security. And if you can't control things, you don't feel secure. No one controls everything. You have helplessness and you turn to rage. If you feel helpless, you'll become angry because you'll feel you can't change anything. You never measure up, never please others. You belittle yourself and you have a bad self-concept. So this is what the negative self-concept is like. It's not pleasant, and it isn't something you should be saddled with. Now let's, go to the last one here. The components of a positive self-concept is that you have a sense of belonging, you feel loved and respected, you have a sense of worth and value, you feel complete, you're thankful for what you have and the talents that you have. You have a sense of humility, though. It doesn't make you arrogant to feel good about yourself. And there's no arrogance or disrespect of self or anybody else. So how should you feel about yourself? Well, it's important that you not be arrogant and you realize that you have a purpose beyond what you realize. You are a part of something bigger than yourself, and you're not an accident. So if you are a person that has a sense of negativity in your life, you have to stop thinking in that way. You have to realize that you're here for a purpose, that you were created, that you were loved, and even if your parents didn't want you, if you were a mistake, you weren't a mistake as far as God is concerned. You are created as a human being because God wants you. Now, I'm going to just go on with a few more notes and then I'll close. A positive self-concept has the following components. You have a sense of belonging, a sense of being loved, a sense of being respected, a sense of worth and value, and a sense of being complete, a sense of being thankful for what you have and your talents, and there is a sense of humility. There's no arrogance or disrespect. And so therefore, you don't have to hate yourself and think that you're awful. You're a person like anybody else. Good points, bad points, whatever. You're a person like anybody else. You know, there is a statement that I like. It came from a book, and it says this: a prince does not have to be a prince to be a prince. I'll repeat that. A prince does not have to be a prince to be a prince. You are a prince or princess because you are. That's the way you were created. So you have to develop a positive self-concept to be able to do the things that you need to do and to have a very satisfying life. So how should you feel about yourself? And I'll just review this. You are important. Your purpose is beyond what you can even imagine. You're a part of something bigger than yourself, and you are not an accident. So I'm going to close it here before my voice completely dies. And we'll see you next time, and I'll continue with this next time.